There is a tree the desert never forgot. For over 4,000 years, it fed people where nothing else could grow. No rivers, no rain, no mercy from the sun. Its pods were sweet before sugar existed. Its roots drank water no well could reach. And then, in less than a century, humans tried to erase it. They called it a weed. They burned it. They poisoned the soil around it, but the desert was never listening. This is the story of the mesquite tree, the forgotten foundation of desert life, and why it may outlive everything we've built. Welcome to Lost Nature Vault. Our archive opens in the Sonoran Desert near Tucson, Arizona. In 1998, archaeologists uncovered clay jars buried beneath the sand. Inside were mesquite seeds, 4,000 years old, still alive. No writing, no metal tools. Yet the people who stored them understood something modern agriculture forgot. Survival is not about control. It's about cooperation. Where corn failed and rivers vanished, mesquite never stopped producing. Because mesquite does not live on the surface. Its roots plunge over 100 feet underground, some reaching twice that, tapping water locked away since the last ice age. Those roots can store hundreds of gallons, enough to survive a decade of drought. The tree doesn't fight the desert. It becomes part of it, and the food it produces is unlike anything else. Each pod contains natural sugars, complete protein, and soluble fiber, engineered by nature to store energy without decay. Ground into flour, it lasts for months without spoiling. The air around flowering mesquite groves smells like smoke and caramel. Indigenous peoples didn't call it survival food. They called it sweetness. Families gathered pods as they fell, crushing them into flour that fed entire villages. Not occasionally, every year. When Spanish explorers arrived in the 1500s, they were stunned. They wrote of forests so dense they created their own shade. Entire communities living beneath mesquite canopies. They called it the tree of life. And then the system changed. By the late 1800s, land was no longer something you lived with. It was something you extracted from. Ranchers arrived with cattle. Plantations followed with cotton and sugar cane. Mesquite didn't fit the new economy. It couldn't be owned. It didn't need irrigation. It produced food without permission, so it was declared an enemy. Millions of acres were cleared. Trees cut to the ground, roots poisoned, land stripped bare. But mesquite doesn't die when you cut it. It waits. Even without a trunk, the root system remains alive. Silent, patient. Cut once, it returns with 10 shoots. Burn it, it comes back stronger. After decades of failure, the U.S. Department of Agriculture admitted the truth in 1948. Mesquite cannot be eradicated. And while humans were trying to kill it, the land was quietly falling apart. Within 20 years of clearing mesquite forests, the soil collapsed. Without root systems to hold it, the ground cracked and blew away. Rivers dried. Grass vanished. Cattle starved. And then the weed returned. Where mesquite came back, the soil changed. Scientists discovered its roots. Pull nitrogen from the air, feeding dead ground back to life. Its shade cooled the soil. Grass returned. Animals followed. The desert began breathing again. By the 1970s, ecologists gave mesquite a new name, a keystone species. Remove it and the ecosystem collapses. Restore it, and life reorganizes itself around it. And then another realization hit. This tree wasn't just surviving climate extremes. It was solving them. By the 1990s, droughts across the American Southwest were intensifying. Farmers were desperate for crops that could survive without water. Scientists turned back to mesquite. What they found shocked them. Its pods contained more calcium than milk, protein comparable to eggs, and sugars that behaved nothing like modern sugar. In 2005, researchers discovered mesquite's sweetness comes from fructosaccharides, sugars that feed gut bacteria instead of spiking blood sugar. Low glycemic, no energy crash, safe for diabetics, one scientist wrote. It's sugar that heals instead of harms. As global sugar consumption exploded and diabetes tripled, the desert had already solved the problem. By 2010, mesquite flour was selling in health stores for premium prices. Chefs began baking with it. Ice cream, bread, sweeteners. An ancient food was rebranded as a luxury. But the real revival didn't start in laboratories. It started with memory. Around 2012, indigenous farmers in Sonora and Arizona began planting mesquite again, not as a product, but as an inheritance. Old seeds, hidden in jars for generations, were returned to the soil. One farmer planted them where dry riverbeds once flowed. Within 2 years, the trees were heavy with pods. She said the smell reminded her of childhood. Mornings, roasting mesquite for breakfast. By 2018, community seed banks were collecting dozens of native varieties, each adapted to its own microclimate. Botanists identified over 30 species. The world was relearning a simple truth. Real resilience isn't engineered. It's remembered. By 2020, droughts were breaking records worldwide. Wheat yields collapsed. Farmland cracked. Rivers disappeared. Scientists asked one question: what survives when everything else fails? The answer kept pointing back to mesquite. NASA researchers studying sustainable agriculture noted its roots could reach water no other crop could touch. One researcher said, "It's less a tree, more a lesson." Governments took notice. Mexico launched massive replanting programs. Farmers in Africa, South America, and India followed. The United Nations called it a forgotten crop of survival. The tree once burned as a weed is now a blueprint for the future. Because every pod, every root, every branch carries the same message. The solutions to tomorrow's hunger are not new inventions. They are old truths waiting underground. This knowledge was never lost. It was waiting for us to remember. If this vault opens something for you, subscribe and open the next one. The archive continues.